You have probably heard of it. It's one of the best-selling personal finance books of all time. This book has sparked so many arguments and, let's be honest, launched a ton of investing journeys. Today, we are going to break down Rich Dad, Poor Dad and really get into the core, kind of controversial ideas that made it such a huge deal. All right, let's dive in.
So it all kicked off with a really simple question from a 9-year-old Robert Kiyosaki. He asks his dad, "Dad, how do you get rich?" See, he'd just been left out by some of his wealthier friends, and he wanted to know the secret. Now his dad, this super educated guy, tells him, well, if you want to get rich, you got to learn how to make money. Okay, but how? Yeah, for that answer, he was going to have to look somewhere else.
And this is where we meet our two main characters. First, you've got his real dad, a brilliant academic who, struggled with money. He's the poor dad. Then you've got his best friend's dad, an entrepreneur who didn't even finish 8th grade but was on his way to becoming one of the richest guys in Hawaii. He's the rich dad. And you know what Rich Dad's first lesson was? It wasn't some big lecture. Nope, it was a job, a super boring job dusting canned goods for basically nothing.
So that job that sounded totally pointless? Oh, it had a purpose. Rich Dad's first lesson was all about experience. He wanted the boys to feel the frustration of working for pennies, to really get it. And that lesson, right there, is what sets up the huge difference in how these two dads saw the world.
And wow, their advice could not have been more different. Look at this. Poor Dad would say things like, when it comes to money, you gotta be careful, don't take risks. But Rich Dad, he'd say, no, learn to manage risk. Poor Dad truly believed our house is our biggest investment, our biggest asset. Rich Dad completely disagreed. He'd say, my house is a liability, and if your house is your biggest investment, you are in big trouble. Just two really smart guys with totally opposite ways of thinking.
And this right here, this is probably the single most important lesson from Rich Dad. It's the core idea that separates the two mindsets. It's not about how much money you make, it's about how you make it. Think about it. Are you just trading your time for a paycheck, or are you building something, a system that makes money for you?
Okay, so if working for money is the problem, then what's the actual trap? Well, Kiyosaki gave it a name that I'm sure you've heard before, the rat race. Let's break down exactly what he means by that.
Right. This is that cycle that so many people get stuck in. And it's all driven by two really powerful emotions, fear and desire. The fear of not having enough money, that keeps you chained to your job. Then desire kicks in. You want nicer stuff, so you spend whatever you make. And as your paycheck gets bigger, what happens? You buy a bigger house, a fancier car, and suddenly your expenses have grown right alongside your income. Now you're stuck. You literally have to keep working harder and harder just to pay for it all.
And this leads to a pretty wild question, doesn't it? What if the advice we've all heard our whole lives, go to school, get a safe job, buy a house, what if that's the actual trap? What if that's the very thing designed to keep people running on that hamster wheel? Kiyosaki basically says, yep, it is, unless you get how money really moves around.
So, let's actually look at how this trap works. Picture this. Your paycheck comes in right at the top. For most people, where does that money go? Whoosh, straight out the door. It goes to taxes, the mortgage, car payments, credit cards, you name it. It fills up those liability and expense columns, but check out the asset column. It's empty. Nothing's going in there. You've never even started your wealth-building engine.
Okay, now let's look at the flip side. This is the cash flow of the rich. See the difference? The focus here is on buying assets first. We're talking real estate, stocks, businesses, things like that. That asset column starts to generate its own income. That income then pays for all the expenses. And the best part? Any money left over doesn't go to buying more fancy liabilities, it gets plowed right back into buying more assets. It becomes this amazing self-powering cycle.
So, to really get that cycle, you have to understand the book's most famous and, honestly, most debated idea. It all boils down to one super simple question. Is something an asset, or is it a liability?
Okay, forget all those complicated definitions you learned in school. Rich Dad's definitions are brutally simple. An asset, it puts money in your pocket. A liability, it takes money out of your pocket. That's it. End of story. It's not about what a thing is, it's about what it does to your cash flow. Simple as that.
And this, my friends, brings us to the big one. For our entire lives, we've been told our house is our greatest asset, right? But let's use Rich Dad's super simple definition.
If your house is taking money out of your pocket every single month for the mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs, what is it really?
Yeah, this is where things get really heated. Kiyosaki's view is clear. Your home is a liability. Why? Because it just sucks cash out of your pocket and ties up money you could be investing in things that actually make you money. But the critics come back swinging. They say, no way, a home is a core asset. It builds equity, it protects you from crazy rent hikes, and it gives you stability. They argue that for most families, it's the bedrock of building wealth. And you know what? Both sides make some really good points.
Okay, so if the big goal is to build up that asset column, how do you actually go about doing it? This is where we move from theory into two very, very different game plans. Kiyosaki's path is all about being active. He calls it inventing money. His formula, especially in real estate, is pretty straightforward. Step 1, find properties you can buy for less than they're worth. Think fixer-uppers. Step 2, get in there and improve them to increase their value. The whole point isn't just to buy something in weight, it's to actively create a profitable asset using what you know.
Now, the other playbook is probably the one you've heard a million times. This is the more traditional, passive approach. You know the drill. Live on less than you make, max out your 401k or IRA, and just keep automatically investing every month into something like a diversified index fund. It's a much more set-it-and-forget-it kind of strategy.
So when you boil it all down, you've got two totally different philosophies. The rich dad way is active and super focused. It's like putting a lot of your eggs in just a few baskets, but you watch those baskets like a hawk. The conventional path, that's passive and all about diversification. Spreading your eggs out over tons of baskets so if one drops, it's no big deal.
So after we've looked at the different mindsets, the definitions, the strategies, the book really leaves you with one big question you have to ask yourself about your own life.
And at the end of the day, the real takeaway here isn't just about whether you should buy real estate or stocks, it's a bigger challenge. It's about shifting your whole mindset, from thinking like an employee, where your main tool is your paycheck, to thinking like an investor, where your main tool is that asset column we've been talking about.
And, no matter which path you think makes more sense for you, Kiyosaki's main point is this. Your single greatest asset is your financial education. The ability to spot an opportunity, to really understand how money works, to manage risk, that's worth more than anyone's stock or property. That knowledge, right there, that's what builds real, lasting wealth.
And that leaves us with one final thing to chew on. The conventional path is all about following the rules to get a pretty predictable result. The rich dad path, though, that's about knowing the rules so well that you know exactly when and how to break them for a shot at something amazing. So the final question is, which kind of player do you want to be?
Don't forget to like, follow, drop a comment, and check the links below.
Don't miss out! Worth checking out.